Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, and welcome back to the unhinged, the undefeated, and the unbreakable TCP Live, coming at you live at 7:30 p.m. We managed it every Thursday evening on YouTube and available ad-free on YouTube memberships and Patreon. The title of this live, Rohan, is Pain Dubai, Pain Dubai. And if you're listening to us on audio, Rohan is dressed as a Jedi.
Just not very well.
You're not very well.
No, I've been pretty sick the last 2 days.
Sick of what?
Sick of Arsenal. Physically sick. Yeah, not been good.
Are you going to be all right to get through it?
Of course. Yeah, I'm good. We're always here.
You seem quite perky for someone who is quite unwell.
I don't know. I don't know.
Rohan did message me earlier and said, can we finish at 8:55 because I want to watch The Apprentice?
Yeah, I do want to watch The Apprentice. It's that time of the year now. It is that time.
I've never really got into The Apprentice.
I love it. It's like one of my favourite shows. Love it.
What was her name? Katie Hopkins. I remember that I watched that series. Was she on The Apprentice?
I don't think so.
I think Katie Hopkins. Do you know who I mean?
I know who Katie Hopkins is. Yeah.
She might have been on like a Celebrity Apprentice. Yeah, she was a contestant on the third series of The Apprentice in 2007.
Really? I didn't watch it then. Watch it. That was when I was watching X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. That was
Rachel Adedeji.
That was peak.
Jay. Oh, yes.
I think they've got rid of X Factor now, though. Actually,
I think they have. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just because they used to have a monopoly. Saturday Night TV in the UK was X Factor, BGT.
Yeah, The Voice as well.
Same people. The Voice, mate.
Yeah.
This is The Voice.
But then you also had like Strictly Come Dancing. I never got into that. Never got into it.
I can't lie. I was quite into it this year. Strictly was good this year. Were you into The Traitors this year?
No. What was Tony Adams in it this year?
The Traitors? No.
No.
Strictly Come Dancing. I think it was Paul Merson.
Paul Merson.
It was Paul Merson. Yeah, he was in it. He was his hips were a bit stiff, I would say. Strictly, I have to say, it's one of those things that you stick on. You're like, it'll be all right, whatever. I watched it with my mum. I got right into it. It's really good. It's really good, Strictly.
I got into it, but there was just so much TV though during that time.
Yeah.
There was just too much.
And here we are now in our own little atomized internet communities arguing about net spend, about Arsenal or whatever.
It's actually crazy though how much times have changed in terms of the transition to YouTube content in general. I reckon I'd be interesting to see what the numbers are in terms of like TV consumers like to YouTube and
I reckon it's probably 50-50, but it'll probably be a generational split, I imagine. Can I read this comment out from Douglas Bander? Hi, how are you? What is wrong with our club? Sign proper players? Douglas, mate, I hear you. We thank you so much for joining us on TCP Live. Rohan is unwell if you're just joining us, and that's why he's dressed like this. You could take your hood down. It's just disrespectful, but that's fine. I want to talk sort of the general mood post Newcastle. Then we want to talk about the game. We want to talk Isak. Isak. We want to talk. We want to talk Martin Odegaard. We want to talk KSE. I want to rank some pain. I want to rank some painful losses, and I want to get a Q&A going. But of course, we have to start with firstly, Ford has not stopped at just a thumbnail this week. He started creating fanzines. Look at this.
Oh God. I've not even seen any of this.
And it's nominal news. Volume 1, number 18, because it's been 18 episodes since the Cannon podcast
started doing TCP.
Took the live on Thursday evening, which everyone loves, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And then we've got two options for the thumbnail.
Options.
We've got this one, which is going down. We've got Miles in one lift button, and we got Anthony Gordon and Isak in the other, and obviously Dubai in the background. I like it.
That's good. That's good.
I like it. It's economical, is what I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, very economical.
Economical.
The background looks very nice.
Background looks good. I think that could be the thumbnail. And then we've got this one, a little bit busier. He's put the fanzine on the thumbnail. I see. This is a bit more sort of. You've got Aaron Ramsey,
there
with a Cannon podcast on his mug.
We like the details.
Yeah. And then the details on the fanzine.
I think it works. I like the color of the background, the purpley transition.
Fordy, you can't promote yourself. He's got his own logo here. Right,
Shout out.
Don't do work for me and then not promote yourself. How dare you? That's right. What we think? Which one? What are we thinking, lads?
I think this one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's just more to it, isn't there? There's just a lot more detail and
more to it.
Yeah.
Remember, you can request thumbnails in the comments. They did one last week that was Rohan as a small boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about it, Rohan.
How are you feeling?
Do you know what? I fully hear that everyone's angry, and I think people have a right to be angry. It's completely understandable. I think the way we handled the January window was really unacceptable. But my God, you'd think we're the only club in the world, in many ways. Firstly, in the way the media treat us, but secondly, how people talk about this club sometimes. And I will say, what you're talking about into the shift in the last 10 years of social media and stuff, and how much time people spend online, I just think it's warping people's perception of what is achievable and what isn't, and kind of making people, yes, kind of more binary, or also perceive that everyone else is more binary as well because of the way that the apps work. It's making everyone, I think, more less kind, I think, like to each other. And look, we can talk about the issues, and we do. And I'm not in any way absolving anyone of any errors. We'll talk about the game last night. But lads, it's football. Like, I just think, like, sometimes I really do think anyone who's sort of in that space of like, get them out. And I'm always like, just if you took 10 days off social media, just take 10 days off, how would you feel? And I think you'd, yes, be disappointed because we've gone out of the Carabao Cup and we've gone out of the FA Cup and stuff. And I spend enough time online. But I think because I had like a childhood before I went online, and sort of had that thing, I think I have just a bit of a sense of like, okay, there's life outside of that. I turn my phone off like for a lot of the day. Like it's just off, or it's just away, and I'm not doing that. And I just think anyway, we could go on about that till the cows come home. But basically, I'm frustrated. Of course I am. But it's just like, the boys are absolutely knackered. Absolutely knackered. And you could see that yesterday. We have issues with mid-blocks. I want to talk about Odegaard because there's an issue there. But this is a team who the greatest manager in the history of the sport the other day said is the best in all phases. And guess what? You still lose matches. You can be the worst. You can be the worst team. You can be the worst team in the world and the best team in the world. You will lose matches and you'll win matches. It happens. San Marino win matches. Man City lose matches. It happens. Again, not there's a wider conversation about, you know, whether we're close enough and what we need to do and all that stuff. But just sometimes I think let's just take a step back. Is it okay for Arsenal to lose a match? Is it? Like, think about your responses to maybe the last 5 losses we've had. If you've just gone full head loss, this is unacceptable. I want the match. It's just, is it? If I said to you before the season, you're not allowed to lose once, is that fair? I don't think it is. And then we retrospectively go back and we look. I don't take back anything I say about this club. I fully back this manager. I fully believe in this group of players. I watched that group of players go out there and spank City, who spent £200 million in January. £200 million. And then, you know what? They had a 2-0 deficit to overturn, and they didn't do it based on a mistake by the goalkeeper and a transition moment. That's what it's football. It happens. Can we give them a bit of grace? If they're massively underperforming, and when I say that things that they can do better, yeah, we'll talk about January window, etc., etc. But on the things that they can control, the effort was there last night. I felt the intensity as far as they could go because they're knackered was there. I didn't love the game plan. A couple of players had a bad night, but it happens. It's football. It's just like, man, just accept where there's issues and give them a bit of grace where you can see they're trying, and that happens in football.
It all comes down to the fact that because people had this expectation that Arsenal will be winning at least a trophy, which still can happen. That's where the frustration comes, and people saw the Carabao Cup as a very good opportunity to get to Wembley before this tie in general. And because we've crashed out now, there's a lot of frustration there because it's another cup that has gone out the window. It's another cup in which, and we'll talk about the game and in general Arsenal's performances in the cups under Mikel outside of the FA Cup win in 2020. It hasn't been good enough. And I think that's where the frustration comes from a lot of people. And I get it, but at the same time, it does feel like it is the end of the world when you expose yourself to so much social media, especially on X, and it can get really toxic. But I think it all comes down to Liverpool as well, because of what Liverpool have done this season so far. And we've said this many times in the podcast. We all felt had Manchester City had not been there at the top, it would be Arsenal to take over and to be that team that wins it, which can still happen. It looks very difficult as of today, and I've mentioned this many times, especially when Saka went down. It all comes down to the fact that people thought this was the year in which the project goes bang in terms of trophies and significant success on that front. And I think that's what it boils down to. And we'll talk about the game, but I think that's the driver ultimately in which, a lot of people, you have your expectations before the season and it's minimum trophy. It has to be a minimum of a trophy that Mikel gets this season. And obviously we went out the FA Cup in really poor fashion. Now we've gone out against a very good Newcastle team, a team that tactically is our kryptonite. And I want to talk a lot about that. And but yeah, I think that's what it boils down to. There was an expectation of a trophy, and because we've gone out in the way that we have, it's a frustration. But I can never knock this. I said it in the main podcast. This group of players, they are so with the manager. They'll run through brick walls for him. You can't deny the effort levels and the intensity that they're trying to put in there. It's very clear to see. But where you can criticize it is the approach, is the game plan, a game plan that has consistently not worked at St. James's Park. You can criticize those factors, but you can't criticize this team in terms of potentially down-tooling, which I think some people may argue could happen because of the lack of trophies, but I don't see that. So, yeah.
But I think we were saying about expectations is the crux of it. It's like a night out, isn't it? If you have no expectations of a night out and it ends up being great, it's like, wow, and you come away going, "Oh my god, what a great evening!" If you built it up,
you built it up, right? You're going out, and you've got your intentions. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. You've got your intentions, and then it becomes very forced, and then it's a bit stiff, and then you feel disappointed. Whereas when sometimes you just go out and it's like, it's just you're in the moment. You're just gonna have a good time. It flows better, and I think that's where it is. There's a lot more pressure now on Arsenal. I always go back to right. And I go to Arsenal games a lot, every single season. And I remember the 22-23 season when Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko, we signed them and we go on an incredible run in the first 19 games in which we accumulate 50 points. And then, it was really nice. The atmosphere, the vibes was great. But then once it came to the business end of the season and there was an expectation of, we're here now. There's 10 games left. We've got to try and win it now. It's serious. And that expectation has been building season upon season upon season. And people are now getting frustrated because it's like, we know how good this team is, but there's nothing to show for it in terms of the silverware, and that's how people view football. A lot of people do. I don't view it like that personally, but I can understand people viewing it in that fashion. And we all know that we have to get trophies, and because we crashed out, it's another disappointment. And that's where the frustration comes.
Yeah. For sure. And I always, I must have said this 1,000 times across content, I'm always conscious of there's a vocal minority who make it seem like everyone thinks this, and it's not true. Most people are fairly in the middle and are like, look, it's disappointing, but I understand it, whatever. I just speak to those on the extremes and maybe those who are kind of, looking at these extremes and going, or maybe there's something in this. It's like, no, that they really are extremes. Like, just go and speak to the people, like the people who are involved. If you had a conversation with Jurriën Timber last night after the game, or William Saliba, you forget that these are human beings, and you can be disappointed, and there's things to talk about, which, as I say, we will come to. But maybe just have a look at your expectations. Do you expect to win every single game? Is that fair? Seriously, is that fair? Maybe it isn't. Do you expect every single game to be our absolute best and we're never going to make a tactical error? No, that's not really fair. Do you expect every player to have a brilliant game every single? Do you know what I mean? You go through and it's like, actually, maybe there's some room not to ignore the mistakes, the January window, and how we approached last night, and can we move forward and all these things. But yeah, hopefully we strike that balance decently, at least on this show. Nathan Piper, great work. Can we explain Odegaard criticism now? Yeah, well, Nathan, thank you so much for super chat. We'll have a section. Yeah, we'll have a section on Odegaard a little bit later. Dane, worrying that all our summer signings haven't elevated as much at all. Calafiori kept out the team by MLS, who's 18. Marino been average, other two poor. Yeah, just quickly on this, because I want to come on to the game. This is partly why and I made a point recently in a TDK video, this long-termism thing, in the same way that we've kind of gone into order a little bit too much on the pitch and away from chaos. I think we've gone too far into the long-term vision. It really works sometimes. Declan Rice, we're chasing him for how long? Even like in the likes of Jorginho, long-term interest. But it also, this long-term thing, 2-3 years ago when we started probably looking at Calafiori, probably wasn't it? Probably when he made the move to Bologna, maybe we're aware of him at Roma. I'm sure we had to look at the numbers, etc. Yeah. Someone at the club's aware of him 2-3 years ago. No one could have predicted Miles Lewis-Skelly coming through. No one. Yeah. So this thing, this constant, we'll move for that player in 3 years. Yeah. But be careful. And that has to be tempered. And it does work sometimes, it doesn't work always. And I feel like we've just gone a little bit too far into that. Everything's a 5-year plan. Everything's next summer. Everything's, we'll do that when it's the most sensible. It's not, it's
lack of risk taking.
Yeah. And it's the same on and off the pitch. And it's never about going to the end of that spectrum. Yeah. It's just about tempering where it is. And I think that's the concern. I think on the super chat, look, I think if you look at the transfer business just over the course of this season, it hasn't massively improved us. I think we can all, we've found Miles and Ethan, which is a great thing, but Calafiori probably hasn't had the impact we wanted. Marino, I think, is a £30 million midfield player playing like a £20 or £25 million midfield player, maybe, and that's what you get for paying that price. Sterling and Neto speak for themselves. So
yeah, I think the Marino one is good. Like, we signed him for 30-35 million, and so far he's been performing at around about 20 million, in that ballpark. Calafiori, I think, Calafiori, it's a case of the injuries have massively disrupted any momentum that he's been able to build so far. And obviously the form and the performances of Miles, we couldn't envision that. Even Mikel, right? He rates these two so highly, the hairlenders of Miles and Ethan. But I don't think he went into this season thinking they'd be playing this much, and sometimes that can happen. But obviously, when you look at the summer business so far, and it hasn't improved us, and it's not been the story that we would have wanted. However, I think a large portion of this is the turbulence we've endured this season so far, and I think that is the driver in terms of the injuries and the red cards. There are factors, and people are like, you're using this as an excuse, but I'm using this as an excuse where it's not an excuse in the context of winning a Premier League. It's not a case of Arsenal languishing 6th or 7th. This is in the context of winning the Premier League, and we've not been able to have that bit of luck that teams do need in the season. So.
Yeah, George sent something to our group chat. I mean, I always just say with this, long term, there are, as we keep saying, things that we can take ourselves and admit ourselves. But it's like, okay, two questions to someone who would say, "Oh, you're just making excuses." Do you think having 10 men is an advantage for the team who has 11 men? Yes. Okay. Second question: do you think fine margins matter in football? Yes. Okay. So then when this is the case, Arsenal have by far the most minutes down to 10. Would that not account for fine margins and an advantage for the opposition? Yes, it would. Okay.
Exactly.
It's not a debate, I don't think. It is a factor. How big you think it is a different question, but saying it's not a factor is just a nonsense. James Wright says Rohan looks like Palpatine from Star Wars. You a Star Wars man, Rohan?
I've watched them all. Yeah, well, they're
It's not
okay.
the same
They're
thing.
good. They are good, to be fair. They are good. But I have watched them all. What's your favourite? Which one's your favourite?
I like the one with General Grievous. You know, the guy with like
Number
5
number
arms.
3. Yeah, Revenge
Yeah, I
of the
don't know.
Sith.
I don't know if I remember the film being particular. I mean, they're
Yeah,
slightly.
you had a lot of different fights in that one. You had like General Grievous. You had
He
Count
was just
Dooku.
sick.
Yeah.
Or not Mace Windu.
That's the same
No,
one.
the dude with Darth Maul, mate. Darth
number
Maul was
1.
sick.
Yeah, he was sick. But
Darth
not
Maul
a lot
was
of people
sick.
like number 1. I don't think. I
Nah,
actually really like
I like
number
it.
1. But
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. Let's just finish on the super chats before we go into the game. United Cal says, "I love you guys' content. From your guys' perspective, why do you think you're so widely hated? Because I don't see what you guys did wrong versus City for the reaction it got." People who know me will know my answer on this. It's really difficult to differentiate between am I just consuming only Arsenal content or am I seeing a genuine reflection of what people think? I don't know the answer to that. I'm not pretending I do have an answer to that. I would say if you're not counting it as a factor at all, I would say you're misguided. But equally, there's a conversation that maybe Arsenal are treated differently. I guess I've reached a point where I don't know. We're in a very new media space. It used to be everyone had basically the same source of information, and we all had a different opinion on that source of information. Now we all have different sources of information. So it's very hard to know really what is the reality. I think if you look in isolated incidents, obviously, like what Jason Cundy said was ridiculous. Obviously, like it doesn't require a conversation. Obviously, there's some things that are said that are stupid about Arsenal. Absolutely no doubt. My problem and my difficulty, genuine difficulty, is contextualizing it. Is it way more than everyone else or way less? I don't have the answer to that.
I think it's Man United and Arsenal. For me, like the feeling I have is those are the two clubs that have always had a lot of heat. Man United and Arsenal. I mean, you go back to the years of Wenger and Fergie. I think it does stem a lot from that. And there are also other factors that I don't really want to get into that are a bit more controversial. But yeah.
Well, are you going to say Miles thing?
Yeah, a lot. It's not just Miles. Yeah.
Happy to say it. There's 100% racial undertones. Of course,
I tweeted it out, I think, a couple of days ago, and it's there for everyone to see. I think it kind of blew up as well. Didn't expect it to, but I'm actually happy that message came across. Now my family they own a news agents, and I have pretty much every single day. I always look at the papers and I go to the back pages and I see the sport content. I've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and I can tell you from the feeling I have, from the headlines I've seen, how certain players are treated to other players from a certain demographic. There's a difference there. Now, I'm not saying every single journalist is like that. There's some really good journalists. Like I remember there's a really good one of Bukayo Saka that I think was done on, I think, the Standard before, which is really good. But generally, there is a difference there. And it's definitely got better over the years, for sure.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely been a vast improvement, but it is still there, and
that one is quite easy to compare.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to compare because if you look at, I don't know, the treatment of Rooney and Foden and whoever when they're coming through compared to when Sterling or Miles you can compare. That is apples to apples, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Eric Shun says, Arteta, complete fraud. Wake me up when he's gone. Eric, you have a very cute dog, but I don't really agree with your opinion. He's not a fraud. He's a very good manager. Is he good enough to get Arsenal over the line? Debatable. He is. I think he is, yeah. But that's a conversation to have. Is he setting up our team in the best way? We'll come on to that now. Complete fraud, I think, is... I'd put it this way. If you met him, would you say that to him? No.
You use that line a lot now recently. I've seen you on X. It's true. It is true. Yeah, it is true.
People say stuff, and you're just like, if you met this person, I guarantee you'd be like, hey man, I'm gonna have a selfie. And you realize it without flexing. Like I've said stuff about like Carragher and Neville and stuff, and then I met Carragher, and I was a bit like, you are a person, and you probably didn't mean it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things.
Besties with Carragher and Neville now.
Yeah, best mates. Working for Sky. That's what I am. Taking their money and protecting the PGMOL or whatever it is. Oh, read the name again. I got baited.
Wait,
Fair enough.
hold on.
Got a super chat, so it's fine. Joseph, finally, before we get on this game, perspective, second in EPL, third in CL is not a crisis. Yeah, this is what I feel. And we're going to come on to the difficulties with last night, because there were difficulties with last night. I think a massive underpinning was stuff we covered on the IR, which is from as George was talking about, sort of the technical leaders that kind of let us down. I would say the physical capacity massively let us down. We also, it doesn't have to go much further than Odegaard misses an absolute sitter. I think because he's pulling his leg out of the way because he doesn't want to get injured, which is I keep watching that thinking, are you trying to get your leg out of the way? I don't like that at all. And then you have Isak, who, by the way, Saliba does the right thing, gets in front of him, and he literally, Inspector Gadget, pulls out a flick round the corner with his leg. We don't need to go much further into it, and then we can talk, how we broke through the thirds and where we go and why.
He reacts quicker to Saliba, though. Once he does that action, then in terms of spinning in behind, he reacts a split second quicker, and that's the difference. And the thing with Isak is, like, his finishes, they're always emphatic. They give the goalkeeper absolutely no thance. They're unsavable shots. So.
And I just look at this as well, just before we get into the game itself. I look at this and I just think, that's the running XG across the two legs. Yeah. We just need to finish our chances. It's that simple. We need better attacking talent. Yes, we have issues in games, of course, but we need better attacking talent.
But what I really want to reiterate, right? And I said this yesterday. Now, we pride ourselves in terms of trying to analyze the game and look at the finer details. And I think, there's obviously the chances that we generated in the first game. There's the big Odegaard chance in this game as well. But I want to kind of put that to the side for a second, even though they're massive. I think over the 180 minutes, Newcastle were deserved the game. They deserved to be in the final. And I can't knock them, because when you look at all the different facets of the game in terms of the high press, in terms of the transition from a mid to a low block and how they pressure the ball consistently and the levels of exertion that they're able to execute consistently physically, they matched us and they were better than us in that regard. Second balls as well. They did so many good things. Like, we did the rewatch of the first game, right? I rewatched it before that anyway. And the feeling I had is, yes, we generated some really big moments. And again, you take them, the game is different, of course. But you don't take them, you have to look at other facets of the game. And Newcastle played a very good game in that first leg. And they played a very good game yesterday as well. And I think they deserve a lot of credit. From Arsenal's perspective, the frustration that I have is that, and you can go back and listen to the main pod that we did when we lost to Newcastle at St. James's Park in the league. And the analysis that we did, the analysis from me was that we played the game that Newcastle wanted. And in that first 20 minutes, we played the game that Newcastle wanted. And it's so frustrating because we go to St. James's Park ever since 2023, when we started Jorginho. And Jorginho didn't need to start this game. It's about the intentions of playing that we didn't do the way that I wanted. We have went physical versus physical against Newcastle. And Mikel post-match, when we beat Newcastle in 2023, said, you can't go physical versus physical against them because they will batter you. They will batter you, right? And that came from the experience of when we lost to Newcastle to get top four in the previous season, when we got kicked about there, But since that 2023 game, we've gone physical versus physical every time at St. James's Park, and we've lost every time. Like, how many times will we keep doing this? That first 20 minutes, go and watch it back. The amount of long balls we're looking to play, and we're not winning the second. Kai Havertz is struggling to hold it up. Physically, he had a really poor game. And then we're not able to pounce on those second balls. And Newcastle constantly are able to generate threat. They're constantly able to disrupt the game. We're not able to get into our shape and pin them in. That comes from our approach in the game. We need to be better as a team at playing through pressure in these games against Newcastle. Like the moment, go and watch the Odegaard chance back. It comes from Arsenal actually playing through pressure, and we break their press. And we get in the final third, then we execute our patterns. It's a really good pass from Thomas Partey initially to break the game centrally. Then there's a little bit of luck of the ricochet, and then Odegaard has that big chance. That comes from Arsenal playing through pressure, but we didn't do that predominantly in this game. We played the game that Newcastle wanted, and we've done that time and time again, and it's not worked to our advantage. And that's the frustration I have, because it's like, you can lose a game of football, it's fine, but when you lose a game of football the same way and it's a trend, that's frustrating. And people will go, yeah, but we had this chance, and I get that, but we have to analyze the game and we have to look at other aspects that Newcastle did better than us, and we didn't really help ourselves in that regard. And I know it's difficult. It's hard in that atmosphere to kind of play through pressure and say, we're going to play ball to feet and we're going to go around you. We're going to do it whichever way in terms of whichever patterns. It's difficult, but that is the way you're able to beat them. But we didn't do that, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, I actually felt the last game at St James's Park was a more controlled game because I think we did a bit better. Did we play Jorginho that day? Last time at St James's Park
this season
in the league in November.
No, we didn't. We played Rice, Marine. The team was Raya, Partey, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber at left back, Rice, Marino, Odegaard. No, not Odegaard. Sorry, Trossard, Havertz, Saka, and Martinelli.
I love that you remember that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I felt as though we control. Maybe it's because Partey was at right back. I felt like we controlled the sort of first and second phase a lot better, a lot smoother. I felt they weren't as jumpy onto us. I think we just got baited into a basketball game and baited into a game that we didn't want to play.
Sorry to cut you. We also concede too many fouls against Newcastle as well. It's so frustrating. Like some of the fouls that we concede, it plays into their hands. Like there weren't as many this game, but in certain moments you can't get into any sort of rhythm if you keep starting the game. We know how Newcastle play in that aspect as well. They're masters at it, and it's frustrating. Like this is a trend that happens.
And I think they were happy for us to go to corners because if they had like 167 corners and they conceded one, their record's really good. Yeah, I think we got baited into that. I think we got put into the basketball game. I felt on the sides, again, I understand why we pick Martinelli. I get it. I do get it. But in that game, you start with Ethan.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he can keep you wide. He can hold on to the ball. He can look after it. He can protect it for you technically. Yeah. And Martinelli, ultimately, he gets himself isolated wide. It either goes back or he loses it because he can't get past you because it's not the right angle for him on the right. Yeah. So, yeah, I felt that was the wrong pick. Maybe, hindsight's 2020. But I maybe the team need freshening up. Do you stick Marino in? Maybe put Rice a little bit deeper and say you don't have to run so much? Although, to be fair, he looked unbelievable. Maybe freshen things up a little bit more. I don't know. Partey at right back or something. But yeah, look, I think we're at a stage in a season where I had a good feeling heading into that game because it felt more like a free hit, but we didn't play like it was a free hit. And I was kind of would have been okay if we'd thrown that game. I'm sorry to say. I kind of would have been okay if we played Miles, Ethan, Sterling, dropped Havertz to the bench, pulled maybe Rice out and stuck Marino in. Do you know what I mean? And maybe just took our big hitters off and kind of did that. Even played a Porter or something. I genuinely would have been okay with it because it comes to a point where it's either going to take this monumental effort that will feel horrible to lose, or you just go, do you know what? Let's just leave it to fate and try and hit them on the transition.
Do you know what it is? It's like, obviously, we beat Manchester City in emphatic fashion, right? And the momentum that came from that game, going into this one, you felt there's going to be a good energy level that can really help us. But at best, I saw Arsenal maybe winning the game. But to score 3 goals, win by a 3-goal margin, it was always an uphill battle, especially with the type of team that we're coming up against. And that's why I always go back to that first leg. Arsenal have no excuses in this tie, right? Because that first leg, they didn't have Fabian Schär, they didn't have Bruno Guimaraes. They're both suspended. We played them at the Emirates. We always give context about things, right? But if I'm being honest, like this tie, there were a lot of favourable things that went our way before a ball was kicked, and we didn't take advantage of that. And we had to go, for me, to St James's Park with a 2-goal lead. That's what I said. I felt we needed a 2-goal lead to go into this game. So to already be 2-0 behind, it was always going to be a difficult game to.
As I say, I was positive towards it, but when it first happened, I should have started with that instinct. I just,
you know what it is, right? So we've analysed the game. We've looked at Newcastle, and for me, it is our kryptonite. It's not just Newcastle. It's Bayern Munich. It's Porto. These types of teams, the aggressive. I actually don't think Villa because I don't think Villa have been too much of a problem for us. I know obviously last season they beat us both times, but we should have won both games. We generated more than enough opportunities to win that. Ironically, I actually think at Villa Park this season, we were fortunate to win personally, but I don't really see Villa as a big problem. But I look at Newcastle, Bayern Munich, Fulham, they've been difficult teams for us. It's not teams that sit in a low block. Not many teams do so. It's these teams that are able to match us physically in the middle of the park, and they always put pressure on the ball, and they can do that over 90 minutes. And then people will say, oh, but then everyone's going to take this Newcastle approach. Not everyone can do what Newcastle can do. However, the Champions League, well, there's some teams that certainly do what Newcastle do. Atletico Madrid, for example, Inter Milan as well, which we played. And, I do think we should have won that game. But those types of games are difficult for us. However, what we can't hide is the fact that we did have gilt edge opportunities. And that's what I want to go back to, right? In these games, I don't know, I tweeted it out today, and when we look from the start of the 22-23 season, how many games have Arsenal kind of been fortunate to come out with a win or a draw? I can see Leeds, Leeds 22-23, Liverpool 22-23 as well, even though we were 2-0 up. I thought we were fortunate to get away with a draw in that game, especially how it went. Yeah. Then Chelsea 23-24, the Stamford Bridge 2-2, Declan Rice, screamer. And then this season, Aston Villa away. 4 games. Not every day is going to be your day. And I don't think it was our day against Newcastle. But in those moments, you just need players to bail you out. And we had the opportunities to do that. And tactically, I felt Eddie Howe got the better of us. But we still had the chances. And when you're not at your best, you still need to be able to find a way. And that is something that this team doesn't seem like it's able to do, barring a couple of 4 games that I can think of. 4 games.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that comes down to attacking talent. Yeah. Like we have to when we're at our absolute best, we win or draw. When we're at our worst, we always lose.
Yeah.
We always lose. And you need to have that quality, do you know what I mean? Let's come to some super chats. Dane, who says, I would rate Odegaard 8.5 out of 10 in 22-23, 8 out of 10 23-24, 6 out of 10 in 24-25. His goal and assists are going down. Why? Does he prefer more transitional footy at 22-23? We'll come on to Odegaard in just a second. Kieran52, thoughts on the midfield of MLS, Rice, Odegaard with Kala at left back. We can talk about maybe how it all works. What needs to happen for you both to be Arteta out? We need to get worse at football, and we're very good at football. Are we good at getting over lines? No. That's a different conversation.
The only way I become Arteta is when this team significantly regresses over a large sample. Yeah. Now, I'm different. Maybe I'm different to a lot of people. I like to give managers time, and I think the manager that I have right now has given me more than enough evidence to suggest that he is the guy. There's critiques that we've always given him, especially in cup competitions, but the stuff that he does is fantastic. I'll maintain that, and I'm not going to let, certain games like yesterday change my opinions on it.
Yeah. Should we talk Odegaard?
Yes.
So, I have a bit of a theory that I want to put to you.
Yeah, you've got a lot to say on this, haven't you?
Yeah. Look, I'll be so real. I've been someone who's kind of, the conversations about Odegaard I felt have been not overblown, but I think people have maybe gone a little bit too far with them at times. Yeah. I'm just going to put Odegaard, Rice, Supermendy, probably in terms of midfielders. Maybe I'll put Miles in there and Ethan. Yeah, I felt it's gone a little bit too far at times. Is probably where I'm at. Is it fair to say these are probably the options for us next year? First team options in the midfield. I do think Miles will move into the midfield, and if not, he's at least a conversation in this. Anyone else we need to probably pass in? Jorginho will go. That's Odegaard, Rice, Miles, Ethan, and hopefully Supermendy. That will be our sort of midfield areas next season. Anyone else?
No, I think Fabio Vieira will be sold this summer as well. I don't believe.
Yeah, but let's stick Vieira in anyway, just in case, just because he probably adds to my point. Okay, I want to split the.
Oh, Marino as well. Sorry, Marino.
Oh, Marino, of course, yeah, Marino. Who could forget Mikel Marino? Okay, I want to split the pitch up into the 3/3. How do I do that with this? How do I do this? Come on. Okay, you can imagine the 3/3. You can get there from maybe from the blue markers. There we are. That's the 3/3. I think at the moment we have Declan Rice, who I believe can dominate this zone. I should move everyone out in terms of position, in terms of a midfield 3. I believe Declan Rice can dominate this zone, this first zone, in terms of in build-up. I think he can be someone who can absolutely dominate that for you. I think he can absolutely, as we know, dominate the middle zone and be the world-class talent in this zone. And I think in the final third, he's maybe not dominant, but he's someone who can affect things in the final third and get you sort of maybe goals and assists. I think he can work in this zone. Yeah. So basically, a zone of the pitch he's absolutely dominant. A zone of the pitch where I think he can be absolutely, we haven't seen it as much because he's not been as deep in it sort of build up, but I believe he can be world class. So world class, right? Zubimendi. I believe Zubimendi can be world class for you in this phase, in terms of in the first phase. When he gets to England, it might take him a little bit of time, and I believe he can be world class for you in this second phase as well. I think that can happen. How you construct this? Maybe one day Zubimendi's deeper and Rice is higher, whatever it might be. Miles, I think, can be maybe not world class in the first phase, but can become world class in this middle and second phase. Marino, you see where I'm going with this? Mikel Merino is decent in all phases. He is a 20-something million pound midfielder who can probably play for you in a number of those zones. You have to have someone like this in your squad. You can't have 10 world-class midfielders. He can fill in a number of places, so I'm happy with him. My issue with Odegaard, I don't believe that Odegaard is world-class in this zone. In the final third, I think closest to goal, he is... he struggles, I think, in terms of creating separation for shots. I think a lot of attacks die at his feet. I think he is someone who, when he's on the inside, if he receives the ball, you can easily push him off. He's not someone I feel can dominate as a midfielder in this zone. Okay, that's fine. I've felt previously Odegaard can be dominant in this zone. I'm now more concerned. There's limitations. The more I watch him, the more limited I feel. The more we come up against mid blocks, I worry about him in these zones in terms of getting inside here and dictating the play. I worry about him again physically. I worry about him in the transition in the middle. So where I maybe previously would have said in these sorts of zones, Odegaard I think is absolutely world class. I'm looking at his angle bias as well. And I'm going, I don't know if I love that. And then in the first phase, I think this comes more to construction of the midfield. So long story, Rice is world class in this phase or this phase. He'll be in one of the two. If we're signing Zubimendi, he's in world class in this phase or this phase. I think let's assume, let's put him in the zone I think they might be best in. I don't love that. I don't love that as a construction of a midfield. And I think in a 3, for me, there has to be someone who can look after this area of the pitch, someone who can look after this area of the pitch, and someone who can look after this area of the pitch. And I think Odegaard, I wouldn't put him in here over Rice. I wouldn't put him in here because I don't believe that's where he's best. And I wouldn't put him in here over a Zubimendi or even a Rice. So I'm beginning to say, where is he in my pecking order? And then I'm looking at the potential of these players, and I'm looking at even a Fabio Vieira. Would I put Fabio Vieira potentially in the final third in some moments over Odegaard? I would as well. He'd probably go, but you know what I mean? So it comes to, just to finish this, it comes to a construction of a midfield. And I'm going, if I'm asking you, if I've got 2 players who are dominating this zone and this zone, and I'm asking you to dominate this zone, I don't believe you can. And that's a big concern for me.
So me and George spoke about this last week because there was some comments from Mikel to Spanish media about Odegaard, and like, I need to watch more Zubimendi first, but I think at face value, at baseline, we all know what type of player he is. You know, a deep line playmaker who's going to be looking to get on the ball, facing play, looking to conduct play. And then you've got Declan Rice, who I believe, when you talk about maximising Declan Rice as a left central midfielder, it comes from allowing him to be underneath possession a lot, alongside the other guy in the pivot, to be able to dictate, but then to also crash the box and have that license to do so. That's the best way to maximise Declan Rice as a left central midfielder. Not have him just high between the lines, back to goal, sandwiched in a block, because he's not going to be able to get on the ball enough, and he's not going to be able to turn the way that you would like a number 8 to do so. That is not Declan Rice's game. So immediately, you know, at baseline, Zubimendi and Declan Rice is going to be the predominant pivot. right? The predominant pivot. It's not going to be always, because we know how flexible the shape is, what the opposition does, what tweaks they make, we'll have to react. But that is what you're going to see predominantly. So that forces Odegaard to be higher. That is going to be Odegaard's role. And Mikel has said this as well. I don't know if you've got that quote up, but it's basically saying we need to get Odegaard higher up, because that's where he can influence the game at his best. That's what he's alluded to. And I said to George last week, and George, I think George is the first to kind of like really highlight this concern, because he has this concern on Odegaard for many years, is that I don't think that is the best way to use Odegaard. I think the best way to use Odegaard is what we saw last season, which he was able to dictate a lot of the game in terms of coming deeper outside the block and allowing us to kind of funnel attacks through him. Not be the person who's high between the lines and he's back to goal and he's going to be sandwiched as well. Now, Odegaard, as a pocket player, I think he's fantastic at stepping outside of cover shadows and getting on the ball. But in terms of when he's got someone on him who's physical, I don't think Odegaard's the best at that. And that's the concern that I have with Odegaard in that role. Can he do it? He can. I think he can do it. But I think there are players like Ethan, for example. I think that's more suited to Ethan, whereas I don't think it's as suited to Odegaard. Whereas I think one thing you will see from Odegaard in a higher role is you're going to see more opportunities for that classic Odegaard ozone type of finish that he has in his locker. But there are also other type of finishes that you'll need to do playing as more of a traditional number 10. And that for me is something that I'm unsure he can do consistently. I think he can do it, but is that the best usage of Odegaard? I don't think so. The manager does think so, because that's the way he's kind of evolving the squad. And he will point to, 22-23, Odegaard was playing predominantly higher, and he got 15 non-penalty goals. One of the highest goal-scoring midfield performances in Premier League history. But is that sustainable? Was that sustainable? So they're the question marks. But I think we know what role he's going to have predominantly next season. And it's not the role I think is his best. But
yeah, I agree. And I think we have to, this is assuming Zubimendi comes in. It may not happen. I don't know. And in a different construction, maybe with Odegaard given a little bit more freedom for Zubimendi isn't in there, and we sign someone like a Musiala or someone who's a bit more forceful in these sorts of areas, or even someone like a Morgan Rogers, I'm like, okay, then there's a different construction there. You got Rogers a little bit further up, being a bit more forceful and sort of driving through things, and Odegaard's dropping out and feeding things. That's fine. Just in this setup, I don't want him here because he's cluttering up with Zubimendi. I don't want him in the middle because I think that would take away from Rice. So then his role would naturally push him further up. And we had that quote from Mikel, which was, just put it in the chat, which was, he used to play very far from the area. I've tried to bring him closer. My challenge is that he loves it. The day he does that, we will see 15 goals in the Premier League. So he's saying he wants him higher. But as I've said, the limitations are there. I don't think this is a world-class ball striker. I don't think this is a guy who has since 22-23 found that zone particularly well, and actually Rice and Odegaard have been speaking about that and saying that they need to do better in that, and I think there's a reason for that. I think he prefers dropping out. I think he's a bit too angle biased. I think he can get physically crowded out. I think he can make the wrong decisions in transition. I think he struggles in transition. Do you know what I mean? So just if I'm looking at someone, if I'm saying Odegaard's going to be stood here next to my Isak or my whoever it might be, I suppose what you said there was question marks. I'm not saying anything. I'm not really saying Odegaard can't do that. I don't know. And I'm not saying that Odegaard is in the great form. I'm not saying we've seen enough. I'm not saying we supported him. I guess I just worry about it. And, you come back to, I think there was someone who put it in the chat. Yeah, another, in terms of creating separation is a concern. Someone said, I think Odegaard where was it? It was something about his chance creation. Where was it? So basically, someone put in he's like the highest open play chance creator in Europe in the top 5 leagues or something in like 2024. That's fine.
But that was a different role though to what we're talking about here. Though,
but it's a different role.
Yeah.
And B, when you are a team who everything flows through this guy and you spend 90% of your game with the ball basically floating between these two areas, I kind of expect that a little bit. And it's not to take away from it, but it's not as impressive as a stat as I think it could be in another team. See what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I just think though
it's still impressive, but yeah, it's like Do you know what I mean? It's like someone. It's like being an attacker who has the most box touches in Europe in an Arsenal team. It's like, yeah, that's good. I'm really happy with that. But you know what I mean?
It's when he's receiving in that space, and then he's up against a very physical central midfielder who's going to be tasked to man mark him. Can he withstand that contact and consistently give us quality in that regard? Like, I always think with Odegaard, him at his best is when he's able to have a lot of touches on the ball and he's able to step outside the block and he's able to dictate. And you remove that level of freedom by bringing in someone like Zubimendi. And especially if you're looking to get Declan Rice deeper as well, in build-up as well. So I think it's one of those ones where I can't be definite on the answer because I don't know. However, I think, though, the way the squad is going, like I said, it maximizes Zubimendi. It certainly benefits Declan Rice, the way we're talking about how we're going to use them. Does it get the best out of Odegaard? That's something I'm not sure about, personally. And I do think it suits someone like Ethan more. The other thing with Odegaard in that role is I wonder how that works with Bukayo Saka as well, in terms of Saka coming inside, because I've always felt the best iteration of Arsenal through their right-hand side from an attacking perspective is when Odegaard steps outside, deeper, Saka comes in, and Ben White makes that late overlapping run. I felt that dynamic was really balanced. Now you're pushing Odegaard higher. Does that limit the freedom that Saka's going to be able to operate with? There's a lot of question marks there. And
yeah, it's question marks, and probably what will happen, one or two things will happen. Odegaard will find his feet in this team again, and everyone go, "Oh, you guys who questioned him," or he'll go out and the guys who are saying, "Oh, you guys never listened." It's like, can it not be? There's more open here. There's more. It could be that he finds this new role and he finds himself in the team, or he's phased out of the team. And we're looking at both, and I think both can be true.
I back him. I think he can give us that quality, but there are question marks there because we're talking about all the stats and all the numbers that you're giving me from 2024. We have to remember what we're talking about now is a different role that he'll be playing. Yeah. So it's a different role. Is he going to be able to deliver those same level of numbers in those metrics? No. So he's going to have to give us quality in other aspects. Can he do that? I think he can. But am I confident in saying he absolutely can? I don't know. So
and Nathan Barber makes a good point here. Odegaard is a final zone passer. The problem is no one is creating enough separation to elevate his ability. If he sees space quicker, it will help him. Yeah, I think with a runner in front of him, as we've always said, I think he jumps up with someone who is making those proper centre forward runs. I don't think he suits being in a team with Kai Havertz, to be honest, right now. In this current iteration, I'm not sure it's completely maximized, and obviously he's been without Saka as well. So there's a lot in the for column, there's a lot in the against column. But we have to be honest about both. Mafia, does the coach's system give the attackers freedom? I think we've covered this, haven't we? I think he can give more. Equally, the reason he goes wide is to keep wave after wave of attack coming. Which again, as we've discussed before, I think is part of the reason you need to go with so much attacking talent, because you need players who can pull something. When you have such a sustainable system, not based on what's the word? What would be the word? Sort of individual expression. You need someone who can give you a bit of that because you need it in a team.
Do you know what it is, though? It's if we're talking about the balance of going wide and central, right? Yesterday, there were quite a few instances where Thomas Partey plays a really good early ball that breaks the lines, and we're in. But then we do lose it in that area, and then Newcastle they're on the transition, and they're bombing down, and then there's more constraint on us. And it happened a couple of times. It was actually massive in the Odegaard chance. It comes from that pass from Partey. But there are also other moments which we play that pass, then we lose it, and Newcastle are on their bike. So it's again that balance, isn't it? Like, so yeah. I think we've spoke about this many times in terms of Arsenal's attacking play. There's a lot of things that we can improve on, and that's in terms of adding more quality, but also internally we can do better, especially in transition. Like that's
for sure, and that's the thing. If Odegaard's higher and he's receiving transitions rather than creating transitions, that's another conversation. Do you know what I mean? That might help.
Oh well, I don't think that would suit him at all, really. Like when we look at Odegaard's best moments in transition, it's always been him deeper playing that early ball through the left.
Yeah, but he's not the one making the run through the space. He's either the one deepest, if we're not signing Zubimendi, making that pass, or he's the one who's already up there receiving and able to turn and play the killer pass. Maybe.
Yeah.
At the moment, I think he's being asked to be the runner. That's doesn't help anyone. Kelly Preston, would he be phased out though as the captain? Unsure. I mean, it's happened before. I think ultimately Mikel needs to make a call. And I think wherever we get it, there's thrust that we're missing from this forward areas. And I'm open to it being the winger. I'm open to it being in the midfielder. Open to it being the striker. We need thrust, and that's someone who can physically run through you. And we don't really have.
The thing is, though, Mikel, and I'm massive on Odegaard as well. Like, I think he's a fantastic player. I've always maintained that. Not our best player. I've always reiterated that. Not Arsenal's best. And I think even last season, people would allude to him being the better player than Saka. No, because Saka was Arsenal's best player, hands down. But I think with Odegaard, Mikel loves him. Like, you see how he talks about him. It wasn't too long ago when he spoke about how Martin Odegaard in the team elevates everyone. He takes them to another level. And, someone talking about a player like that, and he's consistently speaking of high praise of Odegaard. Football is a very weird sport and things can happen. But I would be shocked if he phased Odegaard out in the next couple of years. But then it's a case of, can Odegaard still give Arsenal the quality that we demand from that position? That's a different question. But I do think it's interesting because I don't think fans outside of social media, let's say, I think everyone is massive on Odegaard, but I think online there is starting to be a little bit more of an edginess on Odegaard, especially with Saka out, in how, Saka without Odegaard, we saw what Saka was doing. He was still winning Arsenal games of football. Odegaard's not really been able to do that in Saka's absence, for a number of reasons. He's obviously been ill. He's had injuries as well. But I think people are starting to lose a bit of faith in Odegaard.
Yeah, he can't decide football games on his own. And then it's like, okay, do we need someone who can, or do we need to accept that not everyone in the team will be able to, do you know what I mean? And look elsewhere. And that's the kind of the $1 million question. Isaac Ardis says, phase Alex out.
No, we love Alex.
No, phase me out, mate. I'm a final zone passer.
Well,
there's no creating separation.
I just saw a comment, right? What do you think, What do you think of the Anthony Gordon goal? Who are you blaming, David Raya or Declan Rice in that moment? Just saw a comment. I always personally,
it's right. It's Raya. It's right.
Yeah, hands down. Yeah.
If we have to blame, but also the what annoys me about those situations is it's like Cara and Neville and stuff. They will see 15 of those passes happen in a game, and they'll see how it pushes a team up the pitch. One will go wrong, and then they'll go, you can't play that pass.
I agree. Yeah.
Mate, if it's happened 15 times in a game, and 15 times last game, and 15 times the game before, and they've all been fine, you've had no problem with it, you can't pipe up now.
Exactly. I mean, I felt he was really bad, Carragher, with the analysis of Ortega, where he's like, "You're in goal because you can't pass." I don't know if you saw that when he plays the pass into Kovacic. It's like that pass is very important in terms of you finding the free man of the centre back and then can carry, But it's about knowing when to play that pass.
Yeah,
and David Raya, and he got it wrong, and that's part of the process, isn't it? It's like in that moment, I'm like, oh, why did you play that pass? But I'm not thinking to myself, oh, don't ever play that pass again. No, play that pass if it's on. No. But the problem is that the goalkeeper, and this goes back to, do you remember Bern Leno with Danny Ceballos, Bern Leno with Granit Xhaka? Bern Leno was at fault for both of those situations. The goalkeeper can see the entire picture. He is the only one who is always going to be facing play. Other players are going to be back to goal, so they can't see the full picture. Fabian Schär, the height and the size of him, he's literally right next to Declan Rice. And he knows Declan Rice is not going to turn towards his left and carry. He's going to try and play that pass to Saliba because Saliba is the only option there. You can't play that pass. You just can't. It's quite annoying. I actually think David Raya had a pretty poor game. It's like he went long a lot in that game. And the one moment where he tries to play it centrally, it's the wrong decision. Yeah. So it's,
Yeah, it's hard to say. George Cole says, we need a real director of football and a real CEO. Obviously we're hoping to hear news on a director of football soon. I think, look, reading between the lines, based on everything that happened in that window, I suspect there's some crossed internal wires. I don't buy that everything that happened this window was fully fully unified. Yeah, I think there was. I suspect there was a lot of internal. We should do this. We shouldn't do this. And you just need someone. You need Dad to come in and say, right, everyone, stop fighting. This is what we're doing.
They need you. They need you.
They need me. Am I giving Dad energy? Is what you're saying, Rohan?
No, you are the guy to take Arsenal to the next level.
Rohan, can I just say? I'm really not. Football Pat says, your content's been escaped as I've been going through a tough time mentally. So thank you so much. Oh, mate, look after yourself. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. It's good for you. Good stuff. I've been going for 4 years. Sorting me right out. If you can find a therapist that you like and chat to, especially as men, I think, I think men tend to. There is decent studies, to be fair, to suggest that women actually prefer talking about the problems. It helps them and actually stresses some men out. But to try and get a sense of things, you need someone who can talk it out with you properly and help you to understand things and go, right, okay, these are all the issues. And then from there, you might not need someone, but you really need to talk first as a man. I think just kind of logically go, right, these are my issues. Dane Howarth says 22-23 we were more transitional and Marty, Jesus and Ode thrived. Last 2 seasons been more possession based facing low blocks. Who have we outgrown?
I wouldn't say we were more I don't think. I mean, yes, teams offered a bit more space for Arsenal for sure, but again, we were still facing similar sorts of teams and how they set up, especially how the season went on. The major difference between 22-23 and onwards, and I've said this many times, people who are big listeners of the podcast, we've said it, like the biggest change was the mindset in terms of how to play, what types of passes we're going to prioritize and what types of passes we're going to kind of move away from hitting predominantly. 22-23, very vertical. There's a really good graphic. I can't remember how long. I think it was from StatsBomb actually, where they looked at Arsenal's passing types depending on the game state is pretty much the same regardless. Whereas now we've kind of gone for more of a controlled approach and not looking to concede the number of transitions that we did concede late towards the end of the 22-23 season. That's the big change, But I think in terms of players who've been outgrown, it's difficult, isn't it? It's like I've always maintained with Martinelli. It's like I think Martinelli, if you use him a different way, you can get a greater level out of him. But from the way Mikel speaks about him, from the way Mikel uses our left winger, I just think he's not going to give us what we need. You could criticize Mikel in that aspect because people say, well, if you use Martin any different way, he's going to be better for the team. But if he doesn't think like that, then there's just no point in pursuing.
And we had these conversations of we need to platform this player, we need to platform this player. We also need to have a conversation about you can't platform everyone, so make a decision. I would rather platform Bukayo Saka, frankly, and then get a player who suits maybe not being platformed on the left, and Martinelli doesn't, and that's okay. Nathan Piper, but Arsenal do need to learn player conditions. Your defense is under pressure. Alleviate that without press baiting for 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe, but I think we get this balance right. Look, everything in life, but also in football, is risk and reward. You push your fullbacks up, you leave yourself a little bit vulnerable at the back, but you get more attacking thrust. You play with a double pivot, you might be a bit more solid in front in defense, but if they're not agile enough, you lack support up front. You literally you can't win. So you have to make a decision on balance. And I think generally we do get it right. Like we were unbeaten in 15 or whatever in the league. Like we are pretty good at it. Do you know what I mean? So I get that. If this kept happening, Aaron Ramsdale, conversation. But it just happens sometimes, I think. Alejandro says, genuine question. Why haven't Arsenal backed the manager on investment in the front lines except Jesus and Trossard, like a 9, another right winger and left winger? Well, I think based on what we were saying earlier in terms of there's I think it's a whole host of things. I think probably there's the 9 and the forward market wasn't amazing up until probably the last 18 months, I would say. I would say he arrived and Martinelli and Saka were there. I would say probably maybe missing out on our first targets while we were kind of rebuilding ourselves. Maybe overemphasis on long-term targets. Maybe Edu leaving probably didn't help. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a number of things. I have to say it. Let's transition into the Isak conversation now, because remember Rohan wouldn't get rid of his kidney for that. I do think they will back him in the summer. I really do. I have to say, I think for me, you had to push through and get something done either in the summer or January. But if they're doing this long-term thing, and we always felt summer 2025 was the time we go for a forward, fine. Okay. I don't like it, but I can live with it. Here's my case for Isak. If Newcastle don't get UEFA Champions League, I think he can go for somewhere between 100 and 120 million. He's got 3 years left on the deal. It's a massive outlay, but he is, in my opinion, the best available centre forward on the market. At his age, I think if you win a title or if you get 5 years out of him, you absolutely, if you keep this group together, win a Champions League or a Premier League. I have no doubt if you sign Isak. So for me, Arsenal need the best, and he is the best. We could go and do it. Now, the only thing I'd say against that is it depends on the budget. If we can go and do that and then maybe sign a versatile winger, maybe it's Nico Williams or something, plus a Zubimendi, that's probably about a £200 million outlay. I'd be okay as long as we fix the other issues in the squad. If it's just Isak and maybe Joan Garcia, I would go with a Šeško and kind of fill out the squad. But if you can do enough of the business and go and get the best centre forward on the market, I think you have to do it. We are no longer at the state. I think the Šeško thing only makes sense to me if we're doing best in class elsewhere. If we're doing absolutely Jamal Musiala plus Šeško, I can have a conversation with that because you've got the best in class somewhere else. Maybe Zubimendi, but I think that's not enough impact on the team. I think it's just a regeneration to me, even though it's a brilliant signing. In the forward areas, we need someone who is the best in class, and Isak is available. So that's what I do.
I just think we need players who are going to make Arsenal better at the deficiencies, and I think obviously Isak gives you a guarantee there. But I can't see Newcastle budging from like 140 million. Genuinely, I can't see it. Like, even if they missed that in the Champions League, I think being state-owned, I think it's going to be very difficult to prize him away. I don't think he's that type to push for a move as well, and cause turmoil. I can't see it, mate. I can't see a world in which Arsenal sign Isak in the summer. Like, if you're 100 million, I think you could look at that and think, and if you're saying there's more money to spend, which there absolutely should be, and I think there would be, then yeah, for sure, it's a gamble worth taking. But I just think it's going to be difficult. I personally would rather Arsenal fill out the squad more, and look to address more holes. Whereas I do think Isak signing for that sort of money, it's going to leave us short in some areas.
I hear that, and as I say, I think that it's always a balance. I do think it's not going to cost that kind of money if they don't miss out on Champions League. I really don't, because I think he will be saying, I want to go to a Champions League club. I think if he's pushing, and I think he would push if they miss out on Champions League, I think there's 100 to 120 million. I really do, because if you look at the market, you look at who's moved for that kind of money in the Premier League. I don't think Newcastle can look at, say, Šeško available for 60 whatever million. Depends who else moves. There might be market setting moves, like maybe if a Gyökeres moves early on, he's not going to move for hundreds of millions. He might move for 60. I don't think they can charge over double what, say, Gyökeres goes for, or Šeško goes for, or maybe Osimhen comes to the Premier League. I really don't, especially if they don't get Champions League, and especially if he's pushing. So again, I'm not sat here saying he's going to be 60 million, but I do think this idea is going to be. I've genuinely seen people say he's going to be 180 million. That is crazy.
No, not 100. But I could see 140, Alex. I could see 140.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, we'll see.
They will hit the Champions League? Do you think they'll? I think they'll make the Champions League. I actually had them. My prediction before the season was Arsenal, City, Liverpool, and Newcastle. And I don't think Forest will sustain what they're doing personally. I think Newcastle will make the Champions League. I think there's also fifth spot as well now. That's sort of for grabs.
Yeah, there'll be a fifth spot, which they might get. So we'll see. And then if they do get it, and he is 150 million, then I think we have to look at other targets, and that's fine. If I was advising Isak, I would be saying I would really push, because yes, it might be 1 year in the Champions League, but you're not going to win it with Newcastle, and you are a Champions League winning centre forward, so push to a big club.
He is the best striker on the market, hands down.
This is what I'm saying, and we need the best in class. We need the best in class. So yeah,
so crazy about Isak, right?
Do it.
this is a great example of investing in talent early. And a lot of people say, I mentioned this tweet, and people saying, well, Newcastle still spent 60 million on Isak. Yeah, it's looking like a bargain, though, isn't it? It's like, you invest in the talent early, and you reap the rewards later down the line. And I think with Isak, it's kind of like when you look at him when he was playing at Real Sociedad, it was the quality in deeper areas has always been there for Isak in terms of ball to feet, linking play, the way he's drifting from left to right. He's fantastic in that regard. It's in the box that he was lacking at Real Sociedad. Now, every time he gets in the box and the way he's pinning centre backs and the finishes, it's crazy. And this is a very good lesson in which you look at someone like Sesko, who is very raw right now, but that is a player in 2 years' time, you're looking at similar sorts of money going for him because the tools are there. So I'm always a person who likes to invest in talent. I think strike early before the finances become excessive. Because that's what the situation is, regardless of what way we look at Isak. The finances are excessive,
it's crazy money. I mean, even if it's 100 million or 120 million or 150 million, it's crazy money. Yeah. But for me, we're trying to sign the best in class, and Šeško, I think Šeško will be that. And yeah, as you say, I think if it's getting to ridiculous money, and this is another thing, we have a clear target who wants to join us, who we can go and spend 60 million on. It's another bargain. It's another bargaining chip, I think, for me with Newcastle. Look, we're interested in your player, but we're just not going to pay 170 million. We'll literally just go and buy Šeško. So if you don't want us to do that, fine. I think they'll talk. And I think there is this thing of like, just saw someone, Isak isn't on the market. Newcastle, no pressure to sell, whether they make UCL or not. Mate, money's money. Money's money, and ultimately, if a player wants to go, especially if they miss out on Champions League, they don't want to lose him for free. So he'll be, and if they keep him against his will, he'll just run his deal down. So he's in a very strong position. They're in a very strong position. But if he wants to go, which would be UCL, basically dependent, I'm pretty sure, then I think there's a deal to be done there for sure. Let's come to this one from Brian Holiday. He says, we have to start to look at the owners. Would this type of failure be tolerated at any other Big Six club, not even Tottenham? Look, again, you have to define what success is for you. If success for you is just trophies, then fair enough, and that's conversation over. But for me, it isn't. It's part of conversations. It's moving. I would. People have said this to me before. Would you? I think we've had this conversation before. Would you rather be in a title race for 5 years every year, or win one FA Cup? I'd rather be in a title race every single year. Absolutely. Like honestly, that is not even a debate for me. I think also when you look at the numbers in terms of what we've spent since Arteta came in, I think there's more. There's further to go in terms of backing him. I think if we go out there and we spend that kind of money on Isak, and we get Zubimendi, maybe we get a couple of other players in, and we crash out of all the cup competitions early, and we just look like nothing in the Premier League and Champions League, and we get pretty lucky with injuries. At some point, you say, well, maybe that's maybe it is time to start thinking about it. Yeah, no one is. I don't think anyone, even the most ardent of Arteta supporters, is in. We were only in this because in the end we want the victory, but it's just about knowing when to get off the boat. And I don't think he's been supported enough in the forward areas. I don't think he's had a fair crack at the whip this year so far because of what's happened in terms of the injuries and in terms of that situation. And without that, and the fact that we've stayed in a title race, we've still been pretty good even without that. I'm okay to give him another year and give him an investment. But of course, and then on the owners, I mean, what are you feeling about KSE?
I said on the live stream, like the January window was a massive red mark in terms of what they've done since gaining full ownership since 2018. They've done a lot of fantastic stuff, and I can't not look upon what they have done to get Arsenal to where they are, the investment, especially during the COVID times in which Arsenal are struggling financially with the lack of revenue coming from ticket prices, ticket sales and stuff. But I think the January window, I've said it many times now, like it was gross negligence to leave the squad where it is from now to the end of the season. Like we needed help in January. They didn't give us that. We played 9 games in January to 3 last season. We already had the injury to Jesus touring his ACL. Saka was out, in the Crystal Palace game that happened in December. We were short on numbers and we did nothing. That's a massive red mark because for me, it's kind of like the board don't have the faith that Arsenal are going to do anything this season. That's the feeling I get. I don't think that is the mindset of the manager and the players, but from the board to not back them in a moment in which they need help. That's a difficult pill to swallow. But I do think they'll invest in the summer, as you alluded to. Like, I think we'll invest big in the summer. But it's still like, you have to keep investing. If you want to keep getting better, you have to keep investing. That's what all the top teams do. Sadly, that's how it is, and I just think it was very disappointing for me. But I'm not KSE out. I just think it's a massive red mark on their ambitions.
Yeah, it's part of the picture, and I think again it's about defining success, isn't it, and what your expectations are. If we're saying success is winning the Premier League or the Champions League every single season, then Liverpool have failed, I think, almost every year bar 2 under Klopp. City failed very few times. Chelsea failed every year apart from 2021 and 2017. Villa, who are in this great run, have failed since the 60s. Newcastle United have never even succeeded. If you go through that way, you could look at it like that. Ultimately, you have to define success for yourself and what you think success is and what you think success is for Arsenal. If it is, I absolutely expect us to win the Premier League, the Champions League, or we failed, fine, that's up to you. My opinion is, are we improving? Are we moving towards that goal? Are we getting close enough? Where's my cutoff point? It's within the next 24 months, 100%. If we sat here in February 2027 or whatever it might be, we've still not won anything. We've invested all the money. We've had a fair crack at it. We've still not won anything. Yeah, you'll probably find me going, I think it might be time to go because I feel like I've given someone everything I can, and that's it. But you have to define it yourself.
Arsenal need to win. They need to win trophies to keep the best players. That's how football goes. There's not a lot of loyalty in football. As much as these players, they love the manager, they'll go through a brick wall for him. You see what they're doing. If Arsenal don't win anything, despite what I feel and being a patient person, they'll leave. They will. That's what happens.
And the players,
they'll leave. They'll leave. Like it's just common sense, isn't it? So Arsenal need to win. But I've got a lot of patience because I believe in this manager a lot. The moment this team starts to regress significantly, like you pointed out, in terms of crashing out the cups and not doing anything in the league, that is when I'll happily say, we need a change of direction, new ideas, and new voice. But I'm far from that. And
Same. Josh, we were going to do ranking. Sort of, what was it? Failure. Ranking painful losses. So maybe we'll do that at the end. Our most painful loss under Arteta, but we've got lots of super chats this evening, so thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Josh Miller, do you feel doing major business in the summer, Zubimendi, Šeško, Nico Williams, exonerates the club of failing to support the team this season, or is it unforgivable? I don't really agree with the premise. Sorry, Josh. I think it can be a failure and negligence to not get anyone in the summer and in January, and it can be a great success to go and do something in the summer and support the team. I don't know. I don't think it, for me, it's the same as players. If I feel the direction of travel is good, okay, Raya makes that mistake. That's unforgivable. I'll never forgive him again. Well, geez, wow. Okay, that mistakes happen in football, and you have to accept it, and you have to say how much are you willing to accept.
Yeah, Thomas Frank. There's a really good video that Thomas Frank did on the high press, right, and their centre backs and what they're tasked to do and how aggressive they're meant to be. And he looked at the Brighton game. Brighton hit a long ball. I think Pinnock mistimed his duel. They were in and they scored. The process though and the idea was correct, but they conceded a goal from it. They conceded that goal. Does that mean they stopped doing the same thing? No, because that approach and that idea has brought them a lot of success. The approach that Arsenal have with that Raya pass and with other aspects, Arsenal have had a lot of success in doing so. But Arsenal have had a moment in which they concede a goal from it. It's poor execution. But that doesn't mean you stop the process of doing it because you know what it has given you previously and a large sample size. Football, that's what happens in football. You make mistakes executing the right idea. That's so that's all it is.
And I think their idea is a long-term view of success, and that's the thing to debate. It's like, okay, well, that is that long-termism. That's a conversation. But yeah, I just think I can't, since they took full ownership of the club, by almost every single metric we've moved in the right direction. So I can't. January in isolation was horrendous.
Yeah.
End of conversation. We left the squad short. It's not good enough. But if you're looking at the overall picture, I think you have to include other things. Dane, KSE had an amazing 23-24 summer window. Last 3 windows have been mung. Rumored they weren't happy with money we spent on Rice and Kai without the return. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much sympathy, to be honest, if they're annoyed, if that's true. Like, realistically, guys, you're in it or you're not. You look at the money that's being spent around you.
Exactly.
You knew the money that is required to win these sorts of competitions. If you're not prepared to do that, then leave.
Yeah,
we're not spending way more than anyone else. We're not Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? We're spending, if anything, we spent less than anyone else. So if you're not happy with returns, for me, it's you're in or you're out.
It's just a case of like you have no margin of error if you go with that approach. And football at the top level, there's always going to be error. Like Manchester City spent £100 million on Jack Grealish. Has that worked out? No, it hasn't. Despite what Man City fans will say in that season, which they won the treble, Jack Grealish's contributions did not justify £100 million signing, especially when you look at what he's been doing the past couple of seasons. Mateus Nunes, 50 million. Has that worked out? No, it hasn't. There's a lot of examples there. Chelsea spending 100+ million on Enzo Fernandez, who's had a good season, but has he justified 100 million? No, he hasn't. Manchester United spending 70, 80, whatever it was on Anthony. Teams make mistakes. If you're going to, let's say you have the mindset of Arsenal signing Kai Havertz, a £65 million outlay with the wages was a mistake. Okay, that's fine if that's your opinion. But does that mean that we can't then spend more money afterwards? Absolutely not. How does that make
one
mistake,
sense? You can never spend ever again.
How does that make any sense? Like,
yeah. If Arsenal were to make it up to us by spending 300 million for Isak, Zubamendi, Semenyo, and Buemo, party replacement, and a left back, but a man can dream. Yeah, look, you never know. I mean, not 300 million. I don't think will ever happen. But Samuel Mopball was saying today that there's an unprecedented summer window on the way. Look, it may well be. I don't know what the PSR, where we have good estimates, and I don't think we're as poor as some people might think we are. But we have pretty good estimates that we're in a good position, and maybe we're waiting for the, I think it's April or May when that deadline changes, and maybe we got some more headroom. I don't know. We also got sales to do, so let's wait. Let's wait. We have to see. It may come a point, and it will only be fair if this point next season we're trailing in a title race and we're, but also we might sign Isak and we might start the season slowly, and everyone's go, oh, that's it then. It's like, we'll just let the season play out. Let it play out. You can only judge you can't really judge exactly how things are going right in the middle of things. I think it's hard to, certainly. You have to look a little bit further back and a little bit wider. But yeah. Rohan, should we finish with a bit of fun?
Yes.
Because I know The Apprentice starts in a few minutes.
That's all right. I can watch it on catch up as well. Don't worry.
You sure?
Yeah.
I want everyone to tell me, is it fun? Probably not. Their most painful game under Arteta. It doesn't have to be, the worst game necessarily, but your most painful game, the game that you will remember under Arteta just going, that was horrible. The worst game for you under Arteta.
Just one.
So, I mean, you could look at the Rodri goal, the Rodri winner in the 2-1 on New Year's Day. You could look at maybe Newcastle in the piss kit. You could look at the Olympiacos one where Aubameyang missed. You can look at that Brighton one at home. But I'd love to hear what it was and why. You got one?
Yeah, it's the obvious one, but given the circumstances and what happened, it is the Man City 4-1. That is the most painful game for me. That is the only time since I've been watching Arsenal, even in our worst days, I've turned it off. I turned it off after Rob Holding scored. When he winked, I turned it off. I swear to God, I turned it off. Seriously, I've not seen Haaland's goal. The goal, apparently he takes his pony. He takes his pony, his whatever it is. I can't even know what it's called anymore. He takes it off and he scores. I've not seen that goal. I've still not seen it. I wouldn't watch it if I were you. I refuse to watch it. I turned it off after he winked. I thought, no way. We scored a goal, and it had to be him as well. And the most pointless goal as well, and then he winks. Get out of here, man. Guy. That's my most painful. I'll tell you what my most painful Arsenal win is after as well.
Painful Arsenal win?
Yeah, given the context and the day.
Okay. All right, we'll give you I mean that was a tough one. I remember exactly where I was. I was really ill that day. And we were lying in bed just like it was just and the thing is I remember it was like that season where we felt like we were like something was coming, and it was just such a slap, wasn't it? I think for me, the 3-0 against Brighton, was that a few games later or maybe before? It was
that was
before.
No, that was after.
I think it was it after?
No, it was after. It was the
same period, end of 22-23.
We played Brighton and we lost 3-0. Then we played Forest and we lost 1-0. And then we played Wolves and we won 5-0. Do you remember?
So wait, so Brighton was the
3-0 at the Emirates. That was like the killer because Everton. So everyone was thinking Everton were going to do something against Man City. Can you remember now? And then Gundogan scores that bicycle kick. And then we played after.
Oh no, here we go. So the run was 4-1 against Leeds in April.
Yeah.
So we'd gone out the Europa League in March. We beat Palace, we beat Leeds. Then we went to Anfield and we drew 2-2.
Yep.
Then it was the West Ham game where Saka missed the penalty.
Yep.
Then it was the 3-3 against Southampton.
Yep.
Then it was the City game. Then we beat Chelsea 3-1. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Do you remember it?
I do remember it, yeah. And then we went away to St. James's Park and we beat them. There was a Jorginho performance.
Yep.
We'd had a bit of an up, and this is why I picked the Brighton one. That was
and then Brighton was after, wasn't it? Brighton was after.
Yeah, Brighton was after. Yeah. Then it was Brighton 3-0. Then we lost to Nottingham Forest and we beat Wolves on the final day. But Brighton was 3 games to go. That was the moment I knew it was over. And then Forest, we needed an absolute miracle. But there was still a chance on the Brighton game. And I'll tell you why I got broken up with that day.
I remember you told me about this.
3.5 years of relationship. And she broke up with me that day. And I was like, no, we need to break up. But can you not do it today? Please.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? I went to that Brighton game, and it was because everyone was thinking, "Oh, Everton could do something," and then Gundogan scores a bicycle kick out of nowhere, and then we go on to lose 3-0. Like that whole week was awful because then we went to Forest and we lost 1-0, and then classic last day Arsenal. There was no pressure. We just slapped Wolves 5-0, and Jack scored 2 goals.
Absolute classic. Absolute classic, mate. It was horrible. I was staying in a hotel with no windows. We were on tour with my girlfriend at the time. She was doing an acting show. And we were in this like rubbish hotel, and I'd watch Brighton get absolute slappers, and she was like, "Can you leave?" And I was like, "Yep." It's horrible, man. That was, and also they absolutely killed us. Like they deserved that win. It wasn't even like a lucky win. They just blew through us. Remember Matoma against Ben White.
Oh God!
Nathan Piper, Arsenal, Fulham, like 90 million bid from Saudi.
Oh no! Jesus. Do they not want to take? Can they take Kivior and Zinchenko and
they can have me for 90 million. Nathan Piper, Arsenal v Fulham last season, first boring, predictable, and useless game. PS thoughts on Gordon mocking us and Newcastle trying to bait a rivalry. Yeah, I thought the whole be humble thing.
I don't know about you, but I don't care. Let them do what they want to. It's just a bit of fun, really, isn't it? It's obviously not nice, but
I don't care. They're just such an irrelevant club. It's like Spurs trying to muscle in on. It's like, who are you? I don't care. The only teams I care about banter from are City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. Kind of. Those are the only because they're the only ones who can talk to us on a football level. Realistically, Arsenal Fulham last season was horrible, and I was also hungover because it was New Year's Day. That was
that the one at the Emirates or
no the one at
their ground
Craven Cottage, yeah. Although the one at the Emirates was horrible as well.
Yeah, that was
underrated one to stretch the prime. Southampton won Arsenal.
Remember that one?
FA Cup 2021. Yeah.
Do you remember who scored?
What's so weird is in all of I don't. Was it
Gabriel own goal?
Was it an early one?
Yeah, it was quite early.
I think it was quite early.
It was a Gabriel.
With all these results, I remember where I was. I was at my house, and then I stress cleaned the house for the rest of the day. Brighton at home 3-0. Villa last season, says Forder. Yeah, the Villa one last season with the Trossard miss. That was horrible. That Liverpool game when Xhaka rolled up the crowd at Anfield. I
No,
hated it.
didn't. Oh no. All right, okay, sorry. No, that didn't happen. It didn't. Please. Oh, all right. This actually really infuriates me. There was only a few. Go and watch it back. The reason why the crowd went up was because they scored a goal about a minute later than that after that incident. That's what happened. It was
No,
the
you rolled them
goal
up, mate.
that did it.
You rolled them up.
No.
Never seen you so triggered. That Southampton 3-3 was that was horrible. The Sporting
skied it to the moon as well.
Oh,
my God.
mate,
Yeah,
the words, the stuff I said to my TV should never be repeated.
Yeah.
Again, it's so weird. I don't remember where I was with like big victories. Actually, no, big victories and big losses. I always remember where I was. Always remember where I was. And I remember exactly where I was at my mum's house. And the stuff I said, she was upstairs. I was like, I should have hear that. Sporting at home when Ramsdale got chipped from midfield. Yeah, that was horrible.
Yeah, that was
the
bad.
Bayern 1-0. That was horrible too. Mate,
yeah, but I could stomach that a bit, even though I was frustrated. It's like we lost to a pretty good team, to be fair. Like, but
any time the white kit, I never want to see that white kit ever again.
Tell you what, the Everton. Do you remember the Everton 2-1 at Goodison in 21-22? Do you remember that one? That was painful. We went 1-0 up. It was in the Amazon documentary, that game. We went 1-0 up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was...
Odegaard scored, and then it was too late. Richarlison scored 3 times. 2 were offside. He scored the 3rd one, and then Damari Gray scored that screamer.
Your memory is crazy. It's so good. I think we should do, maybe next time we'll do this. We'll do like test Rohan on the game. Do you reckon in the last 5 years, if I said to you, okay, if I said to you, Chelsea at home, 1920, what was the score?
1920. That was... We lost 2-1. It was the Tammy Abraham dagger.
Liverpool away, 2021.
2021. That was... We lost 3-1, I think it was.
Liverpool, Arsenal.
Yeah, it was 3-1 because we went ahead with Lacazette.
3-0.
What, in 2021?
Oh, no, sorry. No, sorry, not in 2021.
No, 2021 was 3-1. We lost 3-1 at Anfield. That was when...
Yeah, it was 3-1.
That's when Mikel mentioned about the Van Dijk diagonal to Salah in his chest.
Mate, okay, let's do 2 more to close out the show. Newcastle at home, 22-23.
22-23. Oh. 22-23. Damn.
Newcastle at home, 22-23. Oh yeah, I know which one it was now. I mean, I've just seen the
Oh,
result.
the season before was 2-0.
You're correct.
Can you go to another one? I want to go back to that.
Yeah, okay. Arsenal at home to Brighton, 2019-20.
2019-20. That was... we lost 2-1. That was Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah.
And I think the Newcastle game was the 0-0 because it happened just before... because it happened just before we played Man United, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
0-0.
Neil Maupay scored.
Yeah, 2-1. Yeah, Neil Maupay
scored.
scored.
Ozil assist, December 2019. I'll give you one more, mate. This is genuinely so impressive. Last one.
Or maybe sad.
Bit of both. Last one. City away, 21-22.
21-22.
Yeah.
City away. Oh, mine's gone blank there. Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh.
It's the 5-0. Yeah, 5-0.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Did you just read that in the chat?
No, honestly, because I remember what it was. It was when we started a back line of Kolasinac, Chambers, Cedric Holding.
Things I remember the game when you say it, but I wouldn't. I'll just never get it. Unbelievable. Rohan,
Did you know in that
Rainman.
game in the second half we didn't have a single touch in their box?
Is it autism or what is it?
Just watch every game back twice. I remember the game.
Oliver Monk says Rohan Rainman. My guy knows his numbers. I don't know who Rain Man is.
Neither do I.
Rain Man. I've never seen Rain Man. It's a film. Rain Man is a 1988 American road comedy drama film. Very of its time. Road comedy drama film. Tells the story of abrasive and selfish wheeler dealer Charlie Babbitt, Tom Cruise, who discovers that his estranged father has died and bequeathed his multi-million-dollar estate to his other son, Raymond Dustin Hoffman, an autistic savant.
Autistic?
That's you, babe. Thanks, everyone, for being here. More of a downbeat TCP live, I would say, this evening. Less of the gags, but I mean, to be fair, it is called Pain Dubai. They're probably in Dubai at this point. So I asked my sister where they are. You and my sister.
I need to go to Dubai.
My sister was at a party last time they were in Dubai, and they were there.
Really?
Yep.
Anything happen in terms of?
I'll tell you after. Yes. So let's hope they've arrived safe. Let's hope Bukayo Saka is somehow miraculously healed. We haven't actually got that many games.
Yeah, we got another good break in March as well.
We've got a little bit of a break. So we've got Leicester, then we've got a week, then we've got West Ham, then midweek we've got Forest, we got the weekend we got United. Then we got a week, then we got Chelsea. Then we got an international break. Then we got Fulham at home. So till the end of March, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. 5 more games to the end of March. What are we going to talk about? Nothing.
Nothing. No content.
Do the Champions League games happen before that?
Yeah, Champions League games probably happen like April. No, not April. Surely March. Yeah, they should be happening in March. Shouldn't they?
Should be in March. Yeah.
Next game.
Harvey Cooper says, "Get your sister massaging Saka's injury, please." What are you suggesting about my sister, Harvey? Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rohan.
Very interesting.
Any final thoughts?
Tell you what, I actually feel a little bit better.
I feel better as well. I can't lie.
In terms of my cold, I feel like it's on the last stages now.
And you got a bit of apprentice to tuck into when you're done. Great stuff.
Yeah. Not working tomorrow, definitely.
Harvey,
stop.
We'll leave it there. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. Arsenal, we're still in it in the league, lads. And the Champions League, I've got a good feeling about it. Imagine if we turn this season. Listen, let me cope. Let me believe.
Imagine Moyes does something next week. Moyes
does something. Saka returns early March. Yeah. We go on a storming run to the end of the season. We win the Champions League and the Premier League. It's going to happen, baby. It's going to happen. Speak it into existence. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for watching. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal. I have a little. What do you say? Like peace out or something?
You usually just end it there.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury, electrifying.